Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at how I built my zombie-themed ticket booth for my drive-in movie theater I'm going to do in my Halloween display this year. I have done a drive-in theater in the past, and this year we're going to up it just a little bit, a little more zombies, a little more display, and I'm kind of excited to show you how I put this together. So let's take a look. So I decided to make this ticket booth when I wanted to do a movie theater theme here inside my garage. So I started looking online for photographs of old creepy ticket booths, and I found one particular photograph that I really liked. It had broken glass front and little wood accent pieces that were all kind of a little bit misaligned, a little ajar, and some were broken, and I really liked the way that looked. Looked very old, looked very creepy, and I wanted to emulate that. So I did that pretty simply using painting on wood that I got from Home Depot, and I think it turned out pretty well. So it's fairly simple. All I did is I went to the Home Depot, and in the wood section you can find this sort of sheeting. It comes, I think that's about 2x4, right? And it was about $7 to $8 a sheet. Pretty inexpensive, but it does add up when you need several sheets, because not only did I want to do a front and two sides, but I needed my ticket booth topper as well. So picked up wood for that. Some of this actually, you can get two tops out of one sheet, so that saved a little bit of money. And the sheets themselves, you could make it a little bit easier and use a full sheet, but I measured mine specifically because I wanted the ticket booth to be at the entrance of my garage, and I wanted it to kind of line up just a little bit with the door. And in order to do that, I needed to cut it down just a little bit. So I trimmed about yay much off the bottom of these, and I just did that actually using a utility knife. If you take a utility knife and score it, and you just keep scoring it over and over and over, eventually you can break it off. It does leave a little bit of a bad edge on one side, but you're never going to see it in our purposes, so I thought that was acceptable. And then I did that as well for the ticket booth tops, and that's pretty much all there is. Painting it was a bit of a pain. I basically took some craft paint. You can go to Michael's or wherever, and you can buy metallic silver and metallic gold, and that's what I used to create the design. I just took a yardstick, one that was a little bit thick, and I measured out all of my drawing exactly how I wanted it, and then I put the yardstick on its end so that I could trace around it to get an even shape for all of the design work. It took forever. I actually started this project a year ago when I was going to do the drive-in, but then when I decided not to have my Halloween party, the movie theater, I should say, we decided not to pursue it. But I'm getting back in the spirit of Halloween this year. We're going to do a display at the end of my driveway of a drive-in. I've done that display a couple of years ago, so I'm going to bring it back and add the ticket booth. The ticket booth is going to serve a couple of functions. It's going to take the place of a motorcycle that I used to have in the display that I no longer have, but it's also going to be a stand for the projection, the projector, make it a little bit more functional. So let's get to assembling this. For the vertical supports, I basically also at the Home Depot bought these furring strips. They're 8 feet long, I believe, and they're like $1 something each. I stained them all in barn red stain, which I love this stain because when it is actually, dripped on things, it looks like blood, fresh blood, and it lasts, unlike some of the other fake blood products that might dim or fade over time. Now, my wood here looks a little bit more muted because after applying it, I wiped it off with a rag, just to kind of make it look a little bit more aged. But fresh and thick, this looks pretty good by itself. So took some measurements. I cut this down just a little bit, again, because I don't want my ticket booth sign. I wanted it to go a specific height when I started making this, and I'm just continuing that theme. All right, so we've got 6 pieces for vertical supports. I've got a few extra wood pieces to make some horizontal supports. We'll get to those later. But right now, I guess it's time to start assembling this. I like to keep things very simple, so I'm just going to take my piece of wood here, take my vertical supports. I'm just going to line it up. Let's just move these guys out of the way. All right, so now we're going to screw the front to the supports, and I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm going to just use my fingers and kind of line the vertical supports here with the edge of the wood. Doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, if it's not perfect, that might even be a little bit better. It gives it kind of that sort of, you can tell something's off appearance. So with that in place, I'm just going to take some screws, and I'm just using old screws that I had on hand. And I'm going to go ahead and screw this in a couple of places. I've got the base screwed on. Now I'm just going to move on to the top. Take one of my little ticket booth signs, line it up, and then we're going to screw that in as well. All right, here we have our last ticket booth facade. Now, I did run out of black screws. I like to just reuse whatever I can, whenever I can. So I had to switch to the silver screws, which I don't like. So I just took some black craft paint, touched them up so they're not quite as visible. And I think that works just as well. No one's going to see it really that close anyway. And that's one thing to really keep in mind is people aren't going to be up close and personal with a lot of these props. So it doesn't have to be perfect. And that just makes it more unique and fun anyway. So here we have our 3 different facades. I'm going to do a front and 2 sides. I tried to make them all look a little bit different. When I started this project a year ago, I didn't really think it through. I made a ticket top sign, sign for the top, and I just made it the way it should look without thinking that I wanted it to look aged and decrepit. So in the alternate signs, I kind of adjusted the artwork to make it look like it's missing letters or it was broken. And I think the theory behind that is that the ticket booth operator would have taken pieces and parts off the side ones to make at least the front one look good. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. But we need to put these together, and there's a couple of ways we could do it. Obviously, the easy way would be to screw it into a box and have a square, but I don't like that look, so I am going to actually make it a 45-degree angle. And to do that, I am just going to take some hinges, and we're going to hinge the edges and see how that works. Well, I got a little bit more done than just the hinges. We had a sudden and torrential thunderstorm, so I took everything into the garage and I kind of worked on it just a little bit off camera. I apologize, but let me go ahead and show you what I did. I'm actually pretty excited about it. As you can see, I've got the hinges on. It's kind of holding everything together. Now, I don't plan on keeping it here in front of the garage this Halloween, so I have to use a couple of spacers on the bottom to keep it somewhat level. It's going to be up top, and I'm not going to have that problem up there. But obviously, if you're going to have this on a sloped driveway like I have here, you're going to need to make some accommodations, maybe screw in a couple of feet in the bottom. I'm pretty excited about the way it turned out from the front. I think I got the angles just a little bit wrong. It's kind of hard to see on this side, but I think this angle comes in a little bit. And it might not just be that it's an angle issue. It's, I think, a bit of a warping issue, because when you buy the cheap lumber from Home Depot, you get cheap lumber and you can't count on everything being straight and perfect. I think I could fix it a little bit. I think because what's happening up here is I think this side is kind of like flexing in, but I could put a spacer beam to kind of push them apart up top, and I think it'll look a little bit better. Not sure I'm actually going to go to the effort of doing that, but I could if I wanted to. But let me go ahead and flip it around and I'll show you what I have done on the inside. Now, I did this very quickly, so I didn't make perfect cuts, and I'm not all about that. I'm not about making every little bit look perfect. I want it easy and fast, which is kind of what I've done here. So I cut my spare pieces of wood to make a couple of shelves. The top one's the only one that people are going to see. So I took a can of spray paint and just spray painted it black. I might give it another coat. It's still a little spotty, but that's the only piece that I'm really worried about. I put a shelf in the middle as well, and that is so that I can put my projector here. Because remember, this side is going to face the street. This side will be facing where I'm going to have a drive-in movie theater, and I'll have my projector down here. So nobody's going to see it from the street side, and it'll project on my screen. And this will actually act as a little bit of a weather guard, just in case maybe we get a little sudden rain like we did today. But inside, I've also added a couple of supports just to keep it from flexing a little bit. But otherwise, everything is just held on with a couple of pieces of wood that I've screwed in on each corner, basically. I put a piece of wood to go across on the ends, and then I just put another little piece of wood to be able to screw the boards on. So we've got a couple of more things to do just to dress it up. I actually ended up liking the way that it looks without a back. So I was a little concerned about what it was going to look like, having it just, you see right through it. But it really doesn't bother me as much as I thought it might, especially when it's up there and what you're going to see through it is actually the back. You're going to see the drive-in movie screen behind it anyway, which is what I want people to see. So my original intention was to cover the back, at least to the shelf portion here, to make it seem like it's an enclosed booth. So even though I think I'm not going to do that in the end, I'll do it today just so that we can see what it's going to look like. So to do that, I'm just going to take a black tablecloth that I got from the dollar store, and I'm going to take my staple gun, and I'm just going to staple it to the wood and see what happens. There we go. It does give it perhaps just a little bit more of a finished look. I might go with it. The problem is I don't think the staples are really going to hold this material very well. Might have to build an actual backing piece, and for that part we should probably put a bit of a roof on as well. My original thought was I was going to keep the plastic up and actually have the bar there in between it so that it could go over and create a roof as well, but it doesn't matter. I'm probably not going to use any of it. So we have one last detail to finish it off. Here we go. We have our ticket taker ready to take your tickets. Go ahead and plug him in. Now this is just an old fogger that we had, and he's showing his age. He's about 10 years old. I think it might be time to retire him this year, find him a new place to live, and get a new ticket taker. But for the moment, he's doing his job, and I think it's kind of creepy. I'm pretty excited about my ticket booth. I'm more excited by the fact that it's finally done, or at least pretty close to done, and I can move on to the next project. So make sure that you're subscribed, and then you'll see more DIY projects as we get closer to Halloween, more store walkthroughs, and of course, more product reviews. So that'll do it for today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care, stay safe, and happy haunting.